everyone, I'm Mo from Celer, and today what I'm going to talk about is how to build and monetize your blockchain eSport game under 20 minutes with Celer's State Channel Gaming SDK. So we just had a major mainnet upgrade with open source code release on Ethereum just yesterday, and you can check out the code. And during ETHDenver, we have two bounties. One is C Gamer, which is awarding $1,500 to the best game built using Celer Gaming SDK, and the other is C Builder Award, which is rewarding about the $1,500 for the most innovative application built using Celer Web SDK. So, what is Celer? Well, blockchain has a scalability problem, we all know that, and Celer is a layer 2 scaling solution focusing on state channel technology, and we have made significant progress over the last year, achieving extremely low latency on blockchain transaction time, basically zero fee for interactive applications, minimal storage cost to requirement without no requirement of global storage, and fully preserved privacy for the interacting parties. So we have been also heavily pushing on the user adoption side of things. So what did we build? We built an application platform called CelerX, which is an eSport gaming application platform where you can play skill-based game, compete with anyone in the world, and win cryptocurrencies in prizes. So you can see these are some of the example games that people build using CelerX, and it's available to download in Apple App Store today. So far, after we launched this last November, we have seen about $1.8 million spent in games by the users, with about 50,000 monthly active users and 1.3 million games played in the state channel network that we host from 90 different countries, and we're still seeing 20% week by week growth. And we are actually the world first, and I think only crypto eSport game on Apple Store where you can play these games of scale and win real money and win real cryptocurrencies. So the reason that we entered this vertical of real money eSport gaming is because we believe that this is itself is a highly unsaturated market in itself. Even without blockchain, the market itself is highly growing, and we also have a clear revenue model for the developer space or for the developer partners that we have, because whenever users are playing games, there will be associated fee in the game reward and proceeding, and we will be splitting these fees with our game developer partners. And I will show some result in terms of how they are doing on blockchain. I think one major issue today in blockchain space is that you have to have a monetization model for the developer partners, for the developer ecosystem. Otherwise, people wouldn't stay in this ecosystem. And also, the trust cost of skill-based gaming is really high. If we're talking about traditional payment service providers like PayPal and Visa and MasterCard, these traditional payment mechanisms are charging fees on the order of 20% to 25%. So the fee level there is already extremely high, and it's actually justifiable to use blockchain as a way to lower the cost of running this kind of a business model of skill-based eSport gaming. And so this particular application is not only just a user-facing application, but we also launched a CelerX Gaming SDK alongside with it. So the target audience for this SDK is developers who may not have enough or very deep blockchain experiences. We distill and wrap all the blockhainness or all the state channel complexities away from the developer, away from the game developers, and put a very, very simple API to allow them to integrate the API and integrate the SDK with just 2 lines of code and 10 minutes of time, which I'm going to show very soon. And it also have a very clear monetization model for our developers because we split the tournament fees effectively. So basically, let's say when user play a $1 game and competing with another user who are playing also a $1 game, the winner will get only $1.7, and that 30 cents will be split between us and also the game developers who are building the game and porting this in the SDK. So it's a very healthy and monetization model. Okay, so we have onboarded 259 game developers with 102 games submitted to our developer portal, which I'm going to show you soon. And the integration time is on average less than 30 minutes from the first encounter the game SDK to the finish the full integration. So what's the performance look like? There are some example games that are built by third parties. Comparing to Google Ads and WeChat Ads, which they use today as a main monetization model for these skill-based casual games, we are seeing around 5 to 2x higher revenues for these game developers, and therefore they have a strong incentive to attach to us and at the same time push blockchain technology to mass adoption. All right, enough said on the shading part. Let me get to the coding and also demo of the live tutorial here. So to start the demo, I'm going to start with this particular repo. So if you go to the Celer Network's GitHub, and there will be a CelerX example app. So this is a example application we're going to use today as a guidance to go through the API integration. So what this game is, I just downloaded this repo. I just checked out this repo, and let's check out what this game actually is about. All right. So this game is actually a pretty simple kind of a running game where you play, when the Google browser is down, for example. So basically, you're trying to avoid obstacles, and whenever you die, you have a final score, and that score will be submitted to the system as your score and competing between different players. So our goal here is to take this HTML5 game and turn that into a blockchain-enabled game where people can compete on the blockchain using state channel and win cryptocurrency prizes. Okay, so what's the integration would look like? So, just to go through the list here, if you have a laptop, you can actually follow along this particular tutorial here. You can clone the repo, do the install and all that. So one thing you do need to install here as a dependency in your HTML5 game is the CelerX JavaScript SDK. So this is the SDK layer where we wrap all the complexity of state channels away and expose a very, very simple to use API surface for the game developers. And you can just add these code in the core game logic. Let me just show the code here as well. So you can import CelerX as CelerX JavaScript because this particular repo already have this built in. So it's a kind of a relative import. And there is two places that you need to integrate this gaming SDK. The first is at the start of the game. So at the start of the game, what you will need to do instead of directly starting the game is to get a match object here. So CelerX get match will return you a match object. Now, what is this match object really? So this match object effectively look like this. This is a match object containing the critical metadata for a match that you started. So this particular thing, the most important part of this is the shared random seed. So this particular shared random seed is exchanged in a commit and review pattern against two players, and basically get reviewed later as a true random and a non-fungible randomness source. And therefore, it will ensure that whenever the users are playing the game, they're playing on a level playground and a fair playground, basically. And then you have the seed, to seed the entire game's randomness from this match object. And then you basically add all the game logics here. And the second place to actually integrate in your app is whenever the game finishes, there is a submit score function that you need to call here. So basically, CelerX.submit score, and you can just put a score number of your final result of the game here, and then that's basically it. That's all the integration you need to enable your HTML5 game to run inside of the CelerX mobile application. And now you may ask, okay, how can I test this out, right? So let's say we have done the integration here. So we have done the integration here of Celer on start and reset game, and also CelerX ready. So how to test this is actually pretty simple. We built a all-in-one developer portal here. By the way, there is you can access the developer documentation at the CelerX game developer portal. And if you click integrate now, what it will lead you to is a game developer portal. Once you register in the game developer portal, you can log into the game developer portal and create a game. You can create a game by specifying the name, subtitle, description, the device orientation, what's the primary color for the background, and whether it's a solo game, which we just demoed, or it is a turn-based game. If you want to build some chess game, if you want to build a board game, this would fall into the turn-based game realm. And you can specify a maximal time duration of this game run, and then you can create the game. So I've already created a couple of games here. Let me just use this old example here. And after you created the game, the important thing is to upload the source code of the HTML5 file. And how you can do that is just by do a npm. You can just do a npm run build. And what this will build is basically the build package of this particular JavaScript project. And then what you can do after that is to package this distribution package in a zip and just drag this here. Okay. You can drag the distribution zip here, and then it is immediately available for testing. Now, how to do the testing here? Because all these HTML5 games are actually living inside of a CelerX gaming app. So all you need to do is to go to Apple Store or Google Play and download the CelerX app. And on the right corner here, on the upper right corner here, you can click into a developer mode of scanning QR code. So you have the QR code here. So let me just scan that particular QR code. Yeah, this is too far, so let me scan it here. So once you scan the QR code, what will show up here is the game interface. So you can immediately start to test out the game by, you can immediately see that the real money game is already available. And you can just run, test mode here. And this will start to show up in your app directly. After finishing loading, you can play the game on your phone and also finish the entire testing process. So this is like basically we build a sandbox on the phone directly, for the developers to test out the game and to make sure the integration is successful. So if you have two phones, you upload your game into the portal, and then what you can do is you can upload. There will be a QR code shown here, and this QR code particularly will be able to get scanned on your phone, and you can test out the application and test out the game successfully. Now, after you test out the game, what you can do is you can just do a submit for review, and once the game is under our review, we'll look at the quality of the game, And once we decide the game quality matches the platform's game quality, we'll be able to release it. Now, the beautiful thing about the Celer platform here is that once your game is released, you will get instant and constant revenue stream from the users playing the game. So basically, whenever a user plays a game and do a entry fee payment in State Channel, the State Channel will automatically split a certain amount of a fee to these game developers that will interact and partner with us. So that's basically the model of how we're integrating and expanding to the ecosystem of game developers right now. So what I just showed you now is a very, very simple integration process with 2 lines of code of a single-player skill-based game where you can have the single-player games played by 2 people and competing against each other. But Celer Network's capability also goes beyond that. So we also have the capability to do and host real-time games, real-time and turn-based games. All right. So what you just saw now is the solo game where you have one player and the other players on the other end both playing this solo game. And there are actually some additional functions that you can use in this particular app. So for example, Celer_x.getReady. This basically tells the Celer app that you're hosted in that the UI is ready to be deployed or displayed. Because all the matching process and all the user experience until the game actually shows up is all hosted and handled by Celer_x. So this particular part is actually where you can tell the Celer_x, hey, I have loaded all the asset of the game visual, game asset, display the game now. And there is also the additional functionality of provide score. Basically, whenever this is a callback that is required or optional. It's a callback that is recommended for the developer to integrate. This is a call whenever a user try to exit the game in the middle of a game. Basically, let's say the user just want to quit the game, but we still want to record the current score of what the user have achieved. So this is where you will be calling that particular function. Now, there are other part of the system where you can build simple turn-based games. So simple turn-based game, an example of that is chess game or any kind of a board game. And the API is actually very, very similar. The only difference here are these 2 APIs here. So the first API here is Celer_x.sendState. It will send all the state for this particular board that is packed by you as an application developer. And on the other end of the application, a callback will be triggered on state received. So if you're implementing a multiplayer game, there is also no need to implement your own matching server, your own syncing server. You just use the send_state API to relay the state. Now, the interesting thing about this is that you can actually implement a pure state channel-based application in this multiplayer game. So these send_state can be state proof of your state channel contracts. So therefore, this particular application itself can be entirely decentralized, and there is no central authority that can determine the result other than the involved players. These are some of the APIs that you can use to achieve that. Now, there are other. So what I just talked about is mainly around the Celer_x Gaming SDK. We also just announced the first open source release of our Go Celer node, which is implemented in Go. The resource consumption of this state channel node is very, very low. So you actually only need to have a minimal 10 megabytes of memory to just run this node. And on a 1 gigabyte of a virtual machine, you can support about 1,000 concurrent clients at the same time. And you can actually run this node pretty simply, and be able to connect the light clients to these nodes, and they're all mainnet ready. So you can use them directly to connect the two clients together and send instant payments and relay state and send things like conditional payment across the network. So we also have a API client called Celer Lite client. What this Celer Lite client is trying to do here is to expose a Web3 compatible API to the dApp developers. So the Lite client itself is assuming there is a injected Web3 instance. So for example, if you're using Lite client, you will be able to use MetaMask to open a state channel with the Celer state channel network, and be able to let the parties to send instant payment, either unconditional payment or conditional payment across the state channel network. Now, one last part that I want to touch up on is the conditional payment functionality of Celer. So Celer, as a state channel network, allows not only simple payment send out, but also allows very complicated payment with additional logics attached to the payment. So one example of that is something we call a conditional payment. So basically, in Celer network, you can send off-chain a conditional payment that is conditionally depends on some other result in the network, and that can be an on-chain contract function call result, or it can be a other state channels network function call here, basically. So you can define different conditions, and the different conditions can basically act as kind of an on-chain or off-chain oracle to resolve whether this particular conditional payment gets finally resolved to true, which means that this conditional payment is successful, or the conditional payment has failed. So yeah. And with that, we do have 2 bounties available for the developers to build on Celer. I guess I still have 3 minutes to take some questions from the audience. Any questions you guys want to ask? Yes. So whether the game is appropriate to release on Celer. So the business model that we are providing the developers here is called skill-based real money gaming. And as long as the game itself is skill-based and there is no unfair randomness involved in the game. Let's say if you're playing, so some example of that is a solitaire. Now, solitaire game or bubble shooter. Now, you may ask, okay, solitaire, but the sequence of the cards revealed to the users are actually random, right? So, like, how does that work? Well, as long as the randomness is fair, which actually is ensured by the initial get match object, because now 2 players of the game will be getting the exact same sequence of cards, and therefore it qualifies as a skill-based game and is legal to run in 131 different countries, including United States in 37 different states. So we actually operate and allow the application to run, in the United States, in UK, in Indonesia, and in many other different countries as well. So yeah. Yeah. That works well. So if you export the game from Unity in HTML5, in some cases we see there are some issues with WebGL libraries. But if you're building games in HTML5 engines like Coco's 2DX or Phaser, these are definitely supported. Now, for the Unity integration, we are releasing a Unity native SDK. So once we have that available, by the end of this quarter, we'll be able to support Unity natively as well. All right, thank you.